But I want to start with where you came from. You came, not in your life, but where you came from before you came here, which was D.C.
Yes.
You were at the inauguration or at some of the parties before
yes,
the inauguration.
Yes, I was there on the weekend. Yeah.
Uber and you both donated $1 million to the inaugural fund. What are you hoping this is going to buy you?
I think, I don't think these things are available for purchase, but I do think that what we want to do is engage with every government that we're a part of, and we want to have a voice in terms of how we take things forward. And we're quite optimistic about the overall environment, but certainly the environment in the U.S., which looks like it's tipping towards being more pro-business, with some pullback on regulations that some folks have felt that have held people back. So it's important for us to have a voice. We certainly have a significant impact on the cities in which we operate. We've got 8 million people who are driving or delivering for us. So the impact we have on society is significant, and we hope to keep building on that impact going forward. And again, I'm quite optimistic about what the future is going to bring.
And we're going to talk a little bit about where that intersects with EVs in a second, but just like, how many people saw the picture of the inauguration with all of the tech CEOs and everyone saw it, right? Everyone. And it's very clear that tech CEOs in general are going to seem to have some really unprecedented access or communication with this administration, which I think can be worrisome to some. Why is this a good thing in your point of view?
Well, I think it's a good thing because technology, the U.S. Technology sector, I believe, is an absolute treasure. We have built companies with incredible capabilities. I think that they are benefiting society generally. And we think that, generally, I think technology has had a self-view of, we shouldn't have a voice in terms of government, in terms of public policy, et cetera. And if you think about the impact that technology has on everyday lives, I think it's appropriate to have a voice. Now, that voice should be balanced. It should be out in the open. There should be a diversity of voices that governments engage with. But I think that engagement is healthy. And ultimately, it's going to be up to governments to decide where they go. But I think having the voice of technology heard, and then governments obviously making whatever decisions they think is the best decision going forward, I think that's very healthy, and I don't think technology should be apologetic for that.
And we're going to get into making sure your voice is heard, because we're going to talk about EVs now. And
sure.
You've set a pretty ambitious goal.
Yes.
By 2023, no, 2023.
2030.
2030.
We're already in 2023, yeah.
2023,
yeah,
did you get everyone has EVs?
Not yet, quite.
All right, I'm going to start this again.
Yeah.
By 2030, you've
Yes.
said all Uber drivers, you're aiming to have all Uber drivers driving EVs.
All Uber drivers in the US, Canada, and Europe, and 2040 globally. And frankly, based on how things are going, it's going to be very, very difficult for us to hit those targets. As you know, especially in the US, and when we look at the OEM industry, there was a huge amount of excitement about EVs and the possibilities and investment going into battery technology, manufacturing, et cetera. And in the West, and especially in the US, we've seen a significant pullback. We are continuing to lean forward. If you look at the Uber driver, the average Uber driver is moving to EVs 5 times faster than the average driver. And I think a lot of people count in terms of the number of vehicles sold, but actually if you think about emissions, what counts is the number of kilometers driven. And the average Uber driver is driving 5 times the miles and kilometers than the average driver. So for us, we absolutely believe that we should continue to lean in. And with the penetration of EVs and the number of miles that our drivers drive, it is a very, very important initiative for us. And I think what encourages me, even though the environment is one where OEMs, et cetera, are pulling back, is that our customers and drivers love the product. Usually our drivers will try out an EV through a rental program. You talked about leasing an EV as a way to go. We offer rental programs, or we have fleets that buy these EVs, and drivers can try them out, try before you buy. And then many of them turn into ownership. They love the EVs, they earn more. We've committed to invest about $800 billion in electrifying our fleet, and the number one investment goes to lowering our take rate for drivers who drive EVs. So there's an economic flywheel, an incentive to do so, because the cost of EVs still is too high, and the residual values still are to some extent unknown and quite volatile. And then when you look at the riders love the products as well. So from our standpoint, is it the right thing to do? Absolutely, and we want, and as a business, we want to be a positive factor in the environment and society, et cetera. But what encourages me to keep leaning in is that the product is actually a product that our drivers and our riders love. That said, there are problems.
Yeah.
One, the cars are too expensive, and we need cheaper EVs, and many of the OEMs, especially in the US and Europe, are targeting the luxury customer. So it has been, early adopters have been wealthy people who can afford to buy a more expensive car to support climate. And that's great. But in order for EVs to go mass market, we need to bring prices down. The manufacturers who have brought prices down are Chinese manufacturers, and the quality of their cars is excellent. Obviously, there's real uncertainty about tariffs, trade barriers, et cetera, so we'll see how that goes. And then the second factor is range anxiety and charging, right? Like, you and I may have that. We both own EVs. But for drivers, time is money. And they often, the charging infrastructure that goes in for EVs and is in the center of cities, which isn't necessarily where drivers live. They don't have garages where they can charge overnight. So we still need help as it relates to manufacturers, and we're building a bunch of relationships, but especially from governments and cities to continue the investment in charging infrastructure to keep the momentum going forward. But, I will say the environment right now, if your only goal in life is to increase EVs in our fleet, and we have other goals, it's a tough environment right now, but it is good business and it's a really good product, so we're still committed.
But the two problems you just discussed, the price of the vehicle
Yes.
and the charging, were two places that the government was starting to really help.
Yes.
And this week, Trump has said in his executive order they're going to start to pull back on that.
Yes.
That can't be good.
It's not good. It's not good in the U.S., but we're a global company. And Europe continues. One of the reasons why we came here to Davos is, Europe is still committed to the climate. And I do think that the good news in the U.S. is that the economic flywheel is starting to work. Teslas, of course, they're great vehicles. Our drivers love them. Our riders love them, et cetera. So while government subsidies are incredibly helpful, we also, as a company, we don't want to build a business plan that's dependent on government subsidies. So I do think we are going to make progress in the U.S., but we will make more progress outside the U.S., especially in Europe, and that's fine from our perspective. And when you look at the penetration in terms of miles driven on our fleet, Europe is much higher than the U.S. London is, for example, higher than 30%. So it's absolutely happening. Big things can be difficult, but we're still committed.
Have you spoken to President Trump about this?
I have not spoken to President Trump about this.
Have you spoken to Elon Musk about this?
I've talked to him about Teslas and how our drivers love Teslas, but I haven't talked to him about, the latest regulation, et cetera.
The investment.
Yeah, he's a little busy right now.
But he kind of, might be a good person to talk to.
His product is absolutely excellent. Our Tesla product is excellent, and it's, a leading model in the U.S., definitely.
Is one of the bigger problems here, though, if you convince the drivers to pay the money,
Mm-hmm.
and let's say we have the charging thing all sorted
Yeah.
out in some perfect world in the U.S., what is to them the biggest incentive, other than the fact that EVs are great, and I have an EV, and if you've read my column, you know I love an EV.
Yeah, I think the biggest incentive is never having to pay for gas again. Like it is drivers who make the switch, and usually, they have the charging figured out. We've also built through our product, for example, kind of smart matching and routing, so that if you're, let's say, at 20% charge, we're not going to send you to the trip to the airport where you're going to, run out of charge, et cetera. So we're integrating our dispatch algorithms to essentially let our drivers know what is the best kind of charging location, when they should recharge, when prices are reasonable, et cetera, so that the kind of network is working for them. And again, the drivers who make the switch love it, but it takes some doing to get them there.
Yeah, I mean, every time I'm in an Uber that's an EV, I'm happier, and we have a great discussion.
Do you talk to the driver? What do they say?
I always do, and we always have a nice discussion about charging, and some of them have home charging, which makes obviously a big difference.
That's the best, yeah.
But then when I'm in a non-EV, I usually also ask, right? I will be like,
what do they say?
Price. Number one thing is price.
And they don't bring out charging.
No.
As a concern. That's interesting.
I mean, many of these drivers, they've just gotten new cars, and they're going to get new cars just because they have a battery.
Yeah. Well, you have a Mustang. Do you want to drive for Uber? Try it out.
We're going to get to
we can use more EVs on the fleet.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to get to some of the other issues that some of the drivers have. But what I want to also move on to is AVs.
Yes.
You years ago had decided you were going to do your own autonomous vehicles.
Yes.
Now you're partnering with Waymo, you're partnering with a number of different companies.
Yes.
Why this strategy now?
Well, I think first of all, companies have to stick to what they're really great at. At Uber, we build software, we build networks that, on a concurrent basis, we just hit 1 million concurrent trips, 1 million people taking Ubers at the same time, which for us was a big deal. As I looked at the capabilities of the company, we just weren't a hardware shop, right? So building out self-driving, it takes deep research and it takes a huge amount of hardware talent. And for us, we build AI algorithms, matching, pricing, dispatch, et cetera. And it's very difficult. There are very few companies that are great at hardware and software at the same time. And for me coming in, I wanted to really, really focus on what we're great at. And at the same time, when we looked at the environment, at the autonomous environment, we saw many, many players who were developing the technology. And our having the technology in-house essentially made the rest of the industry competitors. We don't manufacture our own cars, right? So I believe that 10 years from now, for example, AV software is going to be built into every single car sold, every single new car sold. And so we didn't want to essentially be in competition with the AV development environment. And we thought that our best place in the AV ecosystem is helping these AV developers who have spent now tens of billions of dollars in research, et cetera. The cost of hardware is going to be more tens of billions of dollars. We think what we can bring to the industry is monetization and go to market. And so we have essentially the network that will bring demand to AVs. We operate in over 70 countries. We now have fleet partners all over the world who can essentially operate these fleets, depots, recharge, clean them, et cetera. And we think that the demand that we bring to AVs can essentially help AV providers develop financing as well, so that just like you can finance your car with a lease, you'll be able to finance AVs as well. So we think that's the best way to engage with the ecosystem. And just like we partner up and work with every car manufacturer out there, we want to partner up with every AV developer out there, Waymo and many, many others. And if anyone gets to Austin, Atlanta later this year, you'll be able to get Waymos through Uber. And we think that's really, the partnership model is really the right model going forward for us.
So I took a bunch of Waymos in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. How many people have been in the cars? And I don't know
experience.
about any of you guys, but I sort of just, I won't say the curse word on a stage, but I was like, Uber drivers are, I was like, bye-bye Uber drivers. Like, this was such a great experience. Why do I need a human driving this car for these, especially for these shorter term trips? Are you concerned about the economic impact that autonomous vehicles could have on human drivers?
Definitely. Now, I don't think it's something that's going to happen anytime soon. The technology still is limited to very limited origination, destinations, areas of operation. The mapping costs, the upfront costs are quite expensive. The hardware platforms aren't there. And I think for the next 10 years, you are going to have hybrid networks of humans and machines. But you fast forward 15, 20 years, I think that the autonomous driver is going to be a better driver than a human driver. They will have trained on lifetimes of driving that no person can't. They're not going to be distracted. And the fact is that when you look on a worldwide basis, there are over 1 million auto fatalities per year in the world. So I do think it's going to make for safer trips, but I do think that the human displacement here, while it's not something that is going to happen tomorrow, is going to happen eventually, and it's something that we have to think about, society has to think about, and to some extent it's part of our strategy as we think about our earner side, is to diversify the kinds of earnings opportunity that our earners have. So we started with driving, then we get into delivery. We have shoppers, for example. We even have a group now that is labeling, maps, AI, et cetera, helping AI companies in developing their algorithms, et cetera. So we are making investments in creating alternative methods of making money for our earner base. Who's going to get there faster? Are we going to get there faster in terms of more opportunity, or is AV going to get there faster? I don't know, but I think it's a real issue that you bring up, and I think it's a tough one that we in society has to wrestle with, and I don't have easy answers here.
I guess that's my answer to why I'm not going to become an Uber driver.
Well, I think over the next 10 years, it's a great gig, but you're right.
I'm just looking for some long-term
listen,
career advice here.
Listen,
Dara.
I think any professional, any kind of work right now, at some point, I think it's going to start with augmentation, and the augmentation is terrific. And like the augmentation as it relates to safety driving and these hybrid networks, the autonomous drivers are going to take the easier routes, et cetera. But over a period of time, these are very tough questions that we have to ask ourselves.
Yeah, I think the toughest question for me is that my Uber score is a 4.78. And I'm wondering if the robot drivers, the Waymos, are going to also start to grade me as a passenger.
We'll have to see about that.
Yeah.
Depends. You have to close the door gently,
Right,
et cetera.
like it's going to be a new
polite to
model
your driver.
of pissing off the robots, right? Like, I get to pick my music in the car, which is
Absolutely.
nice. But, it might be still offended if I have a phone call and it doesn't like the phone call. This might be. You also announced this partnership with NVIDIA.
Yes.
And that also seems quite unique because it doesn't involve really your own technology, but you're using your own fleet. Explain how this works.
Well, we partner up. We're very excited about the partnership with NVIDIA. And for us and NVIDIA, it's about accelerating the AV industry generally and making sure that there are multiple winners in the industry. Obviously, the NVIDIA chips, the chipset is incredibly powerful. They have been investing heavily in AV technology, and we have enormous amounts of data, right? We've got millions of miles, millions of drivers that are driving now. So if you combine our data with NVIDIA's hardware and algorithms, you have a terrific combination to power other AV providers and the development of safe AV over a period of time.
Fascinating. And I want to go back to Elon for a second because they've announced their own robo-taxis and their plans for that.
Sure.
Do you see them as a competitor or a future partner?
Yes.
Yes
Both.
and yes?
Both. I mean, ultimately, I think, what makes sense to all of these companies, Tesla included, what we bring to the table is much higher utilization. For the same reason that an Uber driver joins Uber versus our competition, you just get more work from Uber. For that same reason, it's going to make sense for AV companies to put their robots on the Uber network as well. Now, they may not do so exclusively. There are some drivers who multi-app, work with competitors. And then if you look, for example, on our delivery business, and by the way, we do like sidewalk delivery robots as well, right?
I want to talk about those guys.
If you look at that business, the big brands, right, and Tesla is one of the biggest brands in the world, are going to have a direct channel to consumers, just like McDonald's and Starbucks have their own app. And at the same time, they work with Uber Eats because they want to drive maximum utilization of these expensive assets. And anyone who doesn't is going to be at a utilization disadvantage and ultimately isn't going to be able to go to market as quickly as someone who does, or finance their vehicles against someone who's on the network as well. And so it will be co-opetition, that classic terms. Tesla at this point, their strategy has been to do it alone, but ultimately we very much want to work with them. And just like we want every safe, qualified driver on our platform, we're going to want every safe, qualified robot driver on our platform as well.
So maybe have you talked to Elon about this?
I have.
And?
He's busy right now.
He'll be less busy when he doesn't have to drive, and his robo-taxis are taking. Well, he has full self-driving. I do want to talk about the delivery robots that you have from Serve.
Yeah, I think Ali's here in the audience.
So
who's the founder? Yes,
he's the founder, and I know you've got these delivery robots out in at least Los Angeles right now.
Yes.
How's that going, and where else are you going with them?
It's going really, really well. So. There are limitations to the delivery robots in that they
and actually, you should just describe what they are.
Yeah, so these are like boxes. How many wheels do they have, Ali? 4 wheels, and they
like
essentially.
A beer cooler.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like, if you picture like a
you got to work
cooler
on your designers. Beer cooler on wheels. That's not very sexy, Ali. You got to work on that. But they're very, very cool, and basically the restaurant puts the food in the robot. The sidewalk robot will go to the house. They'll get a notification. Person comes out, uses their app, and opens the delivery robot and takes their food. It's a great experience. It's a delightful experience. People think it's really cool. There is, because the delivery robots are using the sidewalk, there's a limit in terms of the radius of the delivery. And just like we think that our passenger network is going to be hybrid, to some extent you see that hybrid in Los Angeles. For short deliveries, we'll use a Serve robot. For longer deliveries, we'll have drivers, etc. And that hybrid network is going to continue to take shape over a period of time. But it's been a great experience. It's and the quality is there, and the economics are already working actually, which is pretty amazing.
Except there was this instance, I believe it was a couple weeks ago, where the Waymo hit the Serve robot.
I hadn't heard about that.
Yeah.
Who won?
I think it was
they both lost?
I think it was a bad day for robots in
Oh
general.
my God.
Let's move on to talking about human drivers in these last few minutes. And we've talked a lot about some of the challenges that human drivers have. But whenever I do talk to Uber drivers, they still do have some concerns about pay, about insurance costs. Especially on my drive to the airport to Davos, Uber driver I asked him, what should I ask the CEO of Uber? And he said, why is my insurance cost so high? Yeah,
so insurance is a really problematic issue in the U.S. especially, and especially in California. And just like you here in California with the fires, et cetera, the cost of insurance has been increasing. Probably the cost of personal automobile insurance has increased, my guess is over the last 3 years, by 50%. It is incredibly difficult, and it has caused us to raise prices for consumers. And that money, usually 80% of the take goes to the driver. Unfortunately, more and more significant amount is going to pay for insurance. So we're hoping in California, a couple of other states, to have discussions on tort reform, insurance reform, because Some of the cost is just abusive practices by lawyers, et cetera. It just shouldn't be there. And it is another form of inflation that is deeply problematic. So we're absolutely working with governments, et cetera, to solve that insurance problem. It's a real problem.
And I guess we want to kind of end there because we've talked about, as they said in the intro, some of these challenges.
Yes.
And you've pitched me on being an Uber driver, but we've now got the advent of AVs coming. We've got rising costs of insurance, at least in the U.S.
Yes.
And I am taking a pretty U.S.-centric point of view here. We've got EVs, which you really want people to take. What is your best pitch to me to be an Uber driver?
I think my best pitch to you is that everybody wants on-demand everything. On-demand transportation, on-demand delivery of food, grocery, pharmacy, and now we're actually powering other businesses in terms of real-time delivery. We want to empower the local merchant to Amazon can get it to you next day. We essentially are providing logistics on demand for the Walmarts of the world, for the Apples of the world, but also small, medium businesses. And this idea of being able to push a button, get to a place, or get anything that you want immediately, it will, automate over a period of time, but the growth in the industry is pretty incredible. And, at least for the next 10 years, as far as I can see, the future for us is challenging, but very, very bright.
One last question. What about drones? Because of everything, some of those things you
Yeah.
described, the drones could bring it to me.
I think drones are absolutely going to be part of the solution. And just like sidewalk robots, they're going to be part of the solution. Drones are going to be a better solution as it relates to suburbs, less dense areas where drones can fly safely and can land, let's say in a backyard, et cetera. So I think ultimately as it relates to delivery, you're going to have a combination of sidewalk robots, humans, eventually robot cars, and drones as well. And we will build that dynamic dispatch layer that based on the specific circumstance can decide what's the right way of getting the goods to you safely and as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible.
Yeah, because I feel like in drones we had this promise like 5 years ago that we were going to have drone delivery.
It's the weight is an issue, and obviously regulatory regulations are an issue, but the technology is absolutely getting there. The most advanced players in drones are the Chinese, and so I do think that development of drones, obviously, as part of combat, et cetera, is going to accelerate, not for good reasons, but I do think when we look forward, probably in 4 to 5 years, drones are going to have a breakout.